Hence, maximization of the revenue has certain limitations. Keeping in mind the limitations, the objective of the revenue center is to go on increasing the revenue or to increase the revenue of the organization. And the other area where we can also focus our attention in order to maximize the profit is minimization of the cost or minimization of the expenditure. And usually you will have different areas where you can spend the money either for arranging of the input materials or maintenance of the various facilities, wherein we are spending a lot of the money. While we are spending the money, we should always keeping in mind how economically we can spend the money. To what extent we can save. That means you can identify some of the unnecessary expenditures. By way of identifying the unnecessary amount of the money, which is in the name of the expenditure, or by economizing while you are purchasing the materials, for example, raw materials, you can go for various strategies. You may be identified through your R&D some of the substitute materials to your existing materials, what we have been consuming for producing the goods or services. So by way of substitutes, you can also save a lot of money, or by identifying the new suppliers, you can also economize in purchasing, because as and when you identified any new supplier and he may be interested to increase his business, maybe offer some amount of the discounts or less price also. Or by way of purchasing, you can also go for bulk purchases, so that you can give some concessions or that is discounts, and you yourself use to save a lot of money in the name of transport costs and all these things. So that is how you should always keeping in mind to what extent I can minimize the expenditure of the cost. If you are able to minimize the cost, I think there is no boundaries. You can go on making some exercises or experiments so that you will achieve your target of minimization, objective of minimization of the expenditure of the cost. So these areas, you can refer them as expense centers or the cost centers. You may be having different products you are manufacturing. For every product, I think the purchasing officer of that particular product or on the whole, they are going to make an attempt to minimize the purchase of, minimize the purchase cost of the different types of the materials, for different products, or for different sections, or for different departments. Either it may be product wise or branch wise or section wise. So in various ways, you can make an attempt to minimize the cost of the expenditure. And the third one is the profit centers. You can also identify some of the avenues or the areas or the sections which are profit earning centers. And these profit earning centers should always aim at how, to what extent I can maximize the profit. So generally, these are all the centers which you can find out in every organization. Other than these three, there is one more center, that is investment center. The job of the investment center is to identify the feasibility of adding or extending or expansion of your existing facilities by adding one more machinery, by increasing your amount of the production, by arranging the various facilities, or to open one more section or one more branch or one more unit. So this is how the investment manager always try to identify to what extent I can encash the existing business by way of extension of the existing facilities or expansion of your organization, or to open a new more outlets. So for which he used to arrange the funds in the name of investment. So since these are very heavy in size, he should always be very cautious while you are spending the money in the name of investment. So here there are various strategies in the name of either to make or buy. if you want to make, I think you have to spend all these amounts for arranging the various additional facilities. That may be more burdensome rather than to buy the things as and when you receive the orders from your customers. You can also supply them by buying from the various producers or the suppliers. That may be more economical rather than owning the facility and making the things. That is the name of make or buy decision. So through this make or buy decision also, I think we are able to control our activities of business. So likewise, there are several areas where the investment manager is going to make or to work out how economically we should invest the money for gaining the advantage of increasing our market share or to increase our customers size or to go more new areas for conducting our business. So these are the objectives with which the investment center is going to make its exercise. So these are the various responsible centers which we recognize them in order to attain your settled things, for which and how do we control the various operational activities or the various future activities or the planned things is the main focus of these different centers. So having discussed those things, I think we also made an attempt to discuss on the transfer pricing policy as and when you are having the continuity of one section product is going to be the input of another, output of one department is going to be the input of the other section of the departments. So as and when you are having a linkage of the end of one product is going to be the beginning of the another product, in such a case, since you are producing and you are consuming it, at what price should I get the material from my predecessor organization or the department? So which is going to be the purchase of the subsequent or the next department. So wherein we will follow this transfer price policy, at what price we should charge or at what price we should pay to one of my production centers which is supplying the end product as the raw material of the other product, where the transfer pricing policy, that also we have discussed in the last class. There are several methods of charging the prices. Maybe it is a cost based or a market based or administrative based or cost plus based. So that is how you will have different policies, price policies, which we use to follow while you are having this transfer of the end product from one pocket to the beginning of the other as the input material. So this is how I think we also discussed about the pros and cons of this different types of the pricing policies in the name of transfer pricing. So having discussed those things, now we will go for block 4. In this block 4, you have the techniques like budgetary control, variance analysis, evaluation or the measurement of the performance, and the audit of our management activities. So these are all the different units in this block. And the main focus of this particular block is what are the various control systems or the control techniques which helps to this management control system. These are all the part and parts of management control system. And how this management, how these cost control techniques helps us in order to achieve our objective of controlling the various managerial activities of the business. Now let us start with the budgetary control. So this budgetary control is a very important technique which helps us in order to control the management activities of the business. So here, while you are discussing this budgetary control, just you must have the clarity over what is budget, budgeting, and a budgetary control. This budget is nothing but it is a quantification of a future plan. You have the plans. I want to increase my market share. I want to expand my marketing arena. Or I want to have at least this year, some 1,000 customers I must provide my services. So likewise, you'll have different plans. If your plans are going to be quantified in terms of budgeted sales, budgeted customers, budgeted targets, budget is nothing but the quantification of a future plan. Okay, I have to increase my business. How much? What is the size? If you are able to quantify in number, in numerical value, that is going to be a budget. Even the government of India is also, or any government is going to have its future plans in terms of what is our revenue and how our revenue should be spent in the name of recurring and non-recurring. Likewise, we are going to make our plans. So in order to lead the governance in any state. So likewise, here is also, as a business person, you are aiming to produce this much of the quantity, or you are aiming this much of the turnover. You are aiming your size of the customer should be like this. It should be this one. So likewise, we are aiming to achieve these things by quantifying. This aiming is for future period. If you are able to speak in terms of some monetary value, that is nothing but a budget. And next, budgeting. The art of preparation of the various budgets is budgeting. Budgeting is the actual practice of making the futures into numerical values. That is the budgeting. Control is having prepared your budgets. My target sales is 1,000 metric tons. So having prepared your budget, that is your future plan in quantity, you will start your activities, and at the end of the period, you have your actual amount of the results. And this actual should be compared with your planned one. The planned one is 1,000, the actual one is 1,020. Okay. Your performance is good because you are able to achieve more than what is aimed. Suppose if you are not able to achieve, that is, your actual is less than the targeted. That means here in the name of budgets, we are trying to complete, we are trying to spend, we are trying to achieve as per your plan. So for the purpose of making your journey, you should always keeping in mind how much should be achieved. So far, how much I have achieved and how much had to be achieved. This is how for every moment of your working area, you can compare what is to be, so that you can have your own self-assessment. How much am I online? I mean, as per the schedule of the things to be produced, or I am backlog. Am I having any backlog? If there is any deficiency or the backlog, I think you have to energize yourself in order to reach or to meet as per the scheduled quantity. Suppose if you are going to aiming at 1,200 metric tons, that means for every month you have to do at least 100. That is how 12 months, 1,200. After 3 months, you can verify how much you have. By the end of the third month, you must complete 300. So what is my actual? Suppose if it is 300 more than that, I think you need not feel any tense of it. Suppose if it is only 250, I think there is a short of your schedule. So how should I activize myself? Not only the next month production of 100, but also there is a 50 deficit. And how do I think I must more activize. Your men and machines are just you have to motivate them, just you have to communicate what is the gap between what is to be produced and how much we have produced. That is how every moment just you are going to motivate, you are going to communicate your people with whom you are doing the work about your planned things. So that is how the budgets are going to be very, very helpful in order to attain your set activity or the set things. So sorry for the interruption. This is how I think the budgets are going to be very helpful for attaining your target results. So for which the budget control means just you are comparing the actual with that of the quantified plan, able to identify what is the difference and why we are not able to achieve your targeted amount. So for which I think we are going to make an attempt with your planned things. That is what the budget is, budgeting and budget control. Here, there are the goals of the budgeting process. It works as an aid in planning of the actual operations. And by aiming these things, since there are several departments who are going to involve in making of the attainment of the things, you can have a better coordination among the people. And what all the plans you must communicate to your various people who are concerned to that one. And you must also motivate, control the various activities by evaluating the performance of the various concerned people. So those are the features of this, the goals of the budgeting process. And this budgetary control helps you in order to establish the budgets and comparing with the actuals, revise if necessary, and that is how just you can evaluate. And having evaluated, I think you can communicate the same thing to the concerned, and you can motivate if they are not able to cope up to the level. So the objectives of this budgeting control is, it is some sort of plan, coordinating the various activities, measuring the success and motivation, communication, and control the activities. So this is how your budgeting control is going to be much more helpful for making an attempt to attain the objectives. And so to make this budgetary control more effective, provided you must have the support of top management. So the top management must have the support to all the people who are in the process of making this budgetary control. And all the people must have a teamwork. You must have a mindset of the teamwork. Individually, you cannot do anything unless you form a team, and it is only a team work activity. And while you are fixing your budgets, while you are targeting your future activity, that must be very realistic. Unrealistic things, the figures are very unrealistic, and which are not logically you can attain. In such a case, it is going to be a futile exercise. So while you are fixing your targets, those must be in realistic nature, whether you are able to do it or not. If it is very impossible to do it, in such a case, having planned for your future activities in the name of budgets is of no use. And you must have an excellent reporting system. You have to report from time to time, and what is your actual thing and what is to be achieved. And you must communicate that same thing. So for which your communication channel must be very effective. You must have a very structured organization structure, well-structured organization structure. And your policies of the business must be well defined. And you must have a very integrated approach. And also to have a inspirational approach. Otherwise, your budgetary control is not going to become a reality. Besides these things, I think the very important points which we have to keeping in mind is, what are the different types of the budgets? These budgets are of different types based on the time based on the function. Time means long-term budgets, short-term budgets, or current budgets. Long-term budgets are the budgets which are going to be aiming beyond a year period. Say, for example, your investment budget. How much money to be arranged in order to invest? If you go on increasing your business, it is going to be in the long run. In the short run, you cannot aim and you cannot achieve those things. It is only over a period of time. Some plans are long-term plans, so for which you will have the long-term budgets. And most of the investment budgets are long-term budgets. Then your short-term budgets, your sales budget. Every year, I think you are aiming and how much should be achieved. That is a sales budget or your production budget. And the current budgets, that is only just for one day or for 1 week. I think you'll have too short of the time. You have to do your activities. So likewise, based on the time, long-term budgets, short-term budgets, and current budgets. Based on the function, the production department is going to prepare the production budget. The sales department is going to have its sales budget. The HR people, they are going to how many man hours who should arrange labor budget. So likewise, based on the function or the activity, will have different types of the budgets. And these budgets are going to be helpful in order to attain the set goal of that particular department, that is the production department, or the labor HR department, or the sales department. So likewise, and for the preparation of these budgets, and you should have a very important, that is the key factor among the various activities for the preparation of the various budgets. One should identify the key factor. Key factor in the sense, among the various budgets, the more important one is the sales budget. So in order to aim your sales, you should have the thorough understanding about the market environment. What was the demand for the last couple of years and how much it will be in the next year. Once you established the sales for the next year, all your other budgets are going to depend on it. Sales budget is independent. Based on your sales, your production department is going to aim to produce. So the production department, the budget, which is going to be prepared by the production department, should take the information from the sales department, how much is going to be our expected sales in the next year. Based on your sales, I think I must get ready to match your sales target. Labor budget, how many man hours are required in order to produce that targeted amount of the production, which is based on the sales. So likewise, the most important factor while you are preparing this budget is sales figure. Once you determine that sales, all other budgets are going to be prepared very easily. Without determining, without knowing how much is our sales, you cannot establish anything. Hence, identification of the key factor is very important in this process of preparation of these budgets. And this sales figure can be established through your forecast the future. So for forecasting, you have several factors to be considered and several techniques. With the help of those techniques, you can establish what will be the future amount of sales, based on which all other budgets are going to be determined. And this is how one should prepare these budgets. And here, while you're preparing these budgets, participation of different departments is a must. You must take the coordination from different departments so that it will be more successful in order to prepare these budgets. And here, the involvement of the senior people is very, very important because of their experience, because of their knowledge. They are able to prepare these budgets with more realistic sense. realistic sense. As I mentioned, the types of budgets are generally general budget. According to time, we are going to make them as long-term budgets, short-term budgets, and current budgets. And in some of the cases, you may have the rolling budgets also. So instead of preparing yearly budget, I think we can go for every month. That is how I think you may have the rolling, because you cannot predict what will be the future demand for 1 year. I think you can estimate more realistically monthly wise. If you are going preparing the budgets monthly wise, that is going to become a rolling budget. And in some of the cases, instead of waiting the period for which you aim to prepare the budget, you may have the interim budgets also, interim budgets. So from monthly or for quarterly, just you are verifying, and then just you are knowing how much I can achieve. So that is how you may have the interim budgets also. That is the type of budgets based on the time, based on the function. According to function, budgets are sales budgets, and how much should be the sales. Production budgets, how much should be produced. That is cost of production. That is the different types of the costs, and how do we estimated the different types of the costs. Purchase budget, personal budget, that means the number of man hours required, the number of personnel required. Then the capital expenditure budget, how much amount to be get ready in order to arrange the various machineries. That is in the name of capital expenditure. Cash budget, master budget. Likewise, you can categorize the budgets into different types based on the function. According to the flexibility in the sense, I think those are flexible. We cannot estimate how much is going to be the next year sales. If next year sales are going to be 100, these are all the various amounts of the money to be arranged. If the sales are going to be 80, this will be the various things to be get ready. If the sales are going to be only 60, so here instead of preparing a uni budget only for 100, I think we can have the budgets like, if the demand is going to be 60%, if it is going to be 80%, if it is going to be 100, or if the demand is going to be 1,000 units, and how much is the money to be get ready. Suppose if it is going to be 1,500, that means we are preparing the budgets at different levels of the sales, and levels of the activities. That is what is known as flexible budget. Generally, flexible budgets are more useful, because today you cannot estimate what will be the amount of the demand after throughout this year. You may have the fluctuations, variations in your demand because of new competitors will enter the market, or because of the substitute effects, or because of the changes in the fashions of the public, or their tastes or customs, or whatever the way they are going to be influenced while they are making use of these products or consuming them. So hence, instead of preparing a uni, we are going to prepare different budgets at different levels. That is what is flexible. And for this flexible, at 60%, this is the amount of the cost. At 80%, this is the amount of the budget. At 100%, that is how we are preparing different levels of the budgets at a different percentage of our estimations. And we can also divide the items into operational budgets and financial. Operational budgets are the various performance related activities. Financial budgets are the budgets which we are going to be for financial terms related and financial matters related, maybe working capital budget or cash budget, or projected income budget, and projected the sales budget. So this is how everything is going to be quantified in numerical financial values. That is what is known as financial budgets. If you are going to aiming at only the quantity, 100 units, 300 units, 400 man hours, that is what is operational. If you are going to convert that operations into some monetary value, those are financial budgets. And here, I think in your material, you have given some numerical illustrations also. How do we prepare the flexible budgets preparation? You have given some illustrations. You please go through it so that there is every possibility you may be given a numerical problem also in the name of preparation of the flexible budgets when the data was given only for 50%. So let you estimate at 60%, 75%, and 100%. So while you are estimating those budgets according to the flexible budgeting system, your costs are given, the data was given, and this data may be relating to fixed cost and variable costs, or in some of the cases, semi-fixed and semi-variable also. The material cost is always in proportion to the amount of the sales. That is 100% variable. Supervisory cost, that is not completely fixed, and at the same time, it is not 100% varying. At the most, one supervisor can supervise some 10 people in the organization, from 1 to 10. So his cost from 1 to 10 is the same. If the size of the employees increases from 11 onwards up to 20, again it is fixed. But between 1 to 10 and 11 to 20, it is varying. That means proportionate is varying. That is nothing but a stepwise. And this stepwise level of the cost is semi-fixed or the semi-variable. And some costs are fixed. They never change. Say, for example, your manager's salary, whether you produce or no production, but you have to pay. So likewise, based on the nature of the expenses, you can either to increase as and when there is an increase in your level of the production, or the same amount, since there will not be any change at all because of the fixity. And some costs are semi-variable and semi-fixed. Up to what level these are fixed? From where it is going to be varying, that information will be given in your data itself. Based on that, you have to prepare at some 3 or 4 levels of your estimations of the future amount of the work in the name of flexible budgets. And there is another concept, that is zero-based budgeting. This zero-based budgeting, usually budgets are going to be prepared based on what was in the previous year. And for the previous year data, just you are adding 5%, 10%. It all depends upon the changes in the circumstances, changes in your probability of happening the future activities in the market. So where you have some base, you are adding or deleting from your base figure. According to zero-based budgeting, this is how the thinking is going to be started. If nothing is going to be spent, what will be the punishment? What will be the penalty? If you are going to add something in the name of spending the money, what is the amount of the benefit we are going to be generating, or the benefit you are going to be derived? As long as your benefit is more than what the money you are spending, you can go on adding pi to pi for making your objective to be achieved. So in case of the zero-based budgeting, only zero is the starting point, and you are going on adding. As long as this adding amount is going to produce good amount of the results, you are going to spend the money. And this zero-based budgeting concept first time introduced during this World War II period. During the World War II, all our resources are exhausted. Just in order to run the show, you have to arrange the resources. As and when you have that situation or the circumstances, and you are not going to take into account what we have spent in the last year, he is not going to be taking at a base. If nothing going to be spent, or nothing is going to be allotted, nothing is going to be allocated, what is the resultant fact? So keeping in mind the punishment, keeping in mind the penalty, keeping in mind the loss, you are going adding or providing or the supplying of the funds for the purpose of making your future attempt. So this is the concept of the zero-based budgeting. This zero-based budgeting is not having any base of the earlier figure. So this itself is going to be starting as long as I am going to increase my spending of the money, how much is the result I am going to be achieved, how much is the benefit I am going to achieve. So this is how just we are going to we are going to comparing what is going to be spent and how much is the benefit I am going to be enjoying. So this is how I think the zero-based budgeting concept was started because of the scarcity of the funds in those days. And I think you will have the features of the zero-based budgeting and benefits and the limitation of zero-based budgeting. Like, that is how I think your material is very clearly given in your material through your study material. I think you can go through that one. And one more concept, that is performance budgeting. So all the budgets what we have been referring, mostly they are all monetary value based. And these budgets are going to be referred them into monetary values. Maybe 1,000 rupees of the turnover, the sales in the next year, or this much of the money is going to be allotted for purchasing the material, purchase budget, or this much of the money is going to be allocated for payment of the wage to the man hours. So this is how everything is going to be turned into some monetary value generally. But these performance budgets are not going to be like that. See, the major limitation or the drawback of this general, I mean the monetary budgets are, they are always turned into value. But as and when you talk in terms of financial values, there is a tremendous impact of the inflation. So by this increasing of the increasing of your revenue is subject to the loss of the value of your rupee. So that is the inflation. So here, in order to avoid that impact of inflation on your values, this performance budget is more of a useful one. In case of the performance budget, instead of talking in terms of the number of rupees of the sales, we are talking about the number of goods we are holding, number of units producing, number of, we are not converting to monetary value, just we are taking the actual figures, the values of your products, the number of the products, the number of the tons of your material you are going to be sold, not in rupees. If you are going to quantify in absolute figures, I think you can avoid the impact of inflation on your value of the rupee. And this is how this performance budget is measuring the actual performance of your organization in the name of absolute figures, which helps you a lot. And everything is going to be measured in physical units only, not in monetary units. Because of the impact of the inflation, the monetary units may not be much helpful in order to evaluate or to judge and to compare the performance of the last year with this year, or with your neighboring organization, that is your competitive organization. So for which the performance budgets are going to be very, very useful in order to avoid the impact of this inflation on the monetary figures. And to achieve your target results, you must compare with your actuals with that of the planned one. So that is budget control. Through the budgets, we are controlling various activities. So for which you, first of all, you have to establish the budgets. And continuously you have to compare with the actuals. And fix the responsibility through the preparation of the budgets and entrusting the work. Comparing, that is the evaluation of the performance. Having evaluated the performance, you are able to know who did well and who has not performed as per the planned things. So for which either you have to revise the budgets if you came to a conclusion saying that it is not the mistake, or it is not the problem, or it is not the deficiency, it is an uncontrollable area. Then you can revise it. If those are controllable things, then try to rectify it with all your remedial actions. So this is how your budgetary control is going to be operating in order to achieve your target results, which is the focus of your management control system. In order to make your budgetary control more effective, you must always consult with your executives, and you must always monitor. You must always have the continuity of your actual with the budgets. So you must have a consultation with the officers, both non-officials, non-financial, and with financial executives. And it should be a team exercise. It is a corporate exercise. And you must have a true delegation of the authority with the responsibility. And you should have a motivational approach. That means the culture of the organization should have a motivational approach. And keeping in mind your past experience, I think you are going to make use of your tax experience for the future. And then here, a reporting system should be very, very effective. And you must have a very good communication skills. So with these things, I think you are able to make your budgetary control more effective for the purpose which just you want to make your goal a more realistic one. And for the preparation of these budgets, I think we should have the budget manual. That means the rules and regulations of to be followed while you are preparing your budgets. Excuse me, 1 minute. So here, in order to make your budgetary control more effective, first of all, you have to decide. First of all, you must have a clarity over on what are the various responsibility centers. According to these responsibility centers, you have to prepare the respective budgets. And you have to make your budgets for a realistic period. Generally, the budgets are going to be annual budgets or monthly budgets. If it is going to be a production department, the most realistic way is monthly budgets instead of waiting for a year. So that is how period is also very, very important. Determination of the period is very important because some products are seasonal oriented. During unseason, I think the things are not going to be available. So for which in one season where the material is available, if you are going to prepare it, it is good. But during unseasons, hence let you think about what is the effect of your seasonality while you are preparing it. So that is how, just keeping in mind all these things, you have to decide how much is the period for preparation of this budget. Is it a monthly budget or the half-yearly budget or fortnightly budget or a yearly budget? Then the following are the very essentials for the successful budgetary control. One is the top management support. You must have the clarity over on objectives and goals based on which you are preparing your budgets. Then the budgets must be very realistic. You have to collect the correct data before you are going to prepare the budgets. And you should have a very clarity in the organization structure, either while you are seeking the feedback from your people with whom you are working and to give the direction from your top management. And you should have a very pakka budget manual. And these budgets are going to be prepared with some senior people to whom you are going to form as a budget committee. And all your budgets are going to be having a comprehensive approach. And cooperation should be received from all the people with whom you are making your budgets more effective. That is, solicit cooperation is a must. And you must have the budget education also. Just you must educate, you must give the training for all the people who are participating in order to make your budgets more successful. That means you must have the participatory approach. You should have a two flow, not a one flow. That means you must also allow to give the feedback of your subordinates, and the superior should also give the information from time to time. And you should have a regular review of what is to be achieved and what was achieved. And if there is any resource constraint, immediately just you have to enter into the field and you have to arrange the things. And you should first identify what is the principal factor, that is the sales figure if it is going to be a production organization. Unless you determine the sales figure, you cannot prepare the all other related budgets. And you must have an effective reporting system. What is achieved should be collected the data, that is through your reporting. And you must have the regular comparisons. Analyze the deviations, if any, thoroughly. Unless you are going to analyze, you cannot identify the differences. Unless you identify the differences, how you are going to control the various activities? And while you are comparing, to what extent we can rectify, to what extent we can change the scene of the activity. There may be some occasions where you cannot control it. Those are all uncontrollable. You should also divide whether they are controllable deviations or uncontrollable. So there are all the various things which you have to keep in mind while you are making your activity of this budgetary control more effective. So this is one of the control technique which helps you to make your management control system more effective. And we have the other areas like the variance analysis. That is also one of the technique. In case of the variance analysis, having compared with the actual, the budgeted things, you may have the result of either it is a positive or a negative. Analyzing those things is nothing but the variance analysis. And this variance, why the variance? What is the factor for this variance and variation? So identifying the factor for the variance, say for example, the actual cost is more than the budgeted cost. The actual cost consists of maybe the material cost or the labor cost or the overhead cost likewise. So now we are diagnosing what was the cost which is more than the planned one or the budgeted one, and that is the variance analysis. That is also one of the technique for helps you in order to control the various activities of the business organization. That is variance analysis. So after that variance analysis, the other thing which we should all focus our attention is you have to evaluate the performance evaluation. Performance evaluation is so what are the various statistics, what are the various key variables in order to evaluate. So that is in the name of performance evaluation, and you have to make the audit whether the things are pakka or not. Yes, you have to examine. That is the name of auditing. So those are the issues in relation to this budgeting in this particular block. So with this, I think this session is going to be wind up, and in the next, tomorrow, we will cover the other two areas, that is variance analysis and reporting, and the evaluation of the performance. Those two things we will cover in the next session. With this, if you have any doubts or if anything you want to get it clarified, you are most welcome. Otherwise, I will wind up the session because the time is over. I don't know why. I think more students are not active except recording of my lecture, and I wish the actual learners make use of this recorded lessons for your preparation. I hope, I think you may be busy with your the regular activity. I understood that I think it was not possible for you to join in the session. Hope so. I think we will meet tomorrow. So with this, I am going to withdraw myself from the discussion. Thank you very much.